America blinked first. The most powerful military on the planet, with aircraft carriers, stealth bombers, billion-dollar defense systems, and 40,000 troops deployed across the Middle East, quietly sent a message to Iran asking for a ceasefire. Iran said no. Not maybe, not let's talk, not we need conditions first. No. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi went on American national television, NBC's Meet the Press, watched by millions of Americans every Sunday, looked directly into the camera and said words that should have stopped every newsroom on the planet. This doesn't work like this. There needs to be a permanent end to the war. Unless we get to that, we need to continue fighting. Think about what just happened. America asked the country it has been bombing for 10 straight days to please stop hitting back, and Iran said no, not through a back channel, not through a diplomat in a quiet room, but live on American TV to the American public directly. That single moment tells you everything about where this war actually stands right now. Not where politicians say it stands, not where the headlines say it stands, where it actually stands. Because a country that is losing does not reject a ceasefire on national television. A country that is losing begs for one. So what is really happening? Why did America ask for a ceasefire after only 10 days? And why did Iran, a country being bombed around the clock, say no? The answers to those three questions explain everything unfolding in the Middle East right now. And by the end of this video, you will understand this conflict more clearly than most people watching it unfold on their screens. Let's start with why America asked. 10 days ago, Operation Epic Fury launched with a very specific promise: fast, overwhelming, decisive. The theory was clean. Massive strikes kill the Iranian leadership. The government collapses from within. Regime change happens in days. The nuclear program gets eliminated, and America declares victory before the world has time to fully react. Day 1. Common killed. Mission appears on track. Then Iran responded. 500 ballistic missiles, 2,000 drones, strikes across Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Israel simultaneously, relentlessly, without pause. America's Patriot batteries running low on interceptors. A THAAD radar system destroyed in Qatar. 7 American soldiers in coffins heading home. Oil crossing $100 per barrel for the first time since 2022, briefly touching $19 on Sunday. The largest single-week surge in oil trading history going back to 1983. The plan that was supposed to last 6 days has not produced a single one of its stated objectives after 10. No regime collapse, no internal revolt, no nuclear program eliminated, no regional stability. Instead, a new supreme leader selected Mujtaba Kameh, the dead man's son, who pledged to continue everything his father stood for. Iran's government more unified than before the bombs fell. And America's own National Intelligence Council issuing a formal finding that a large-scale assault on Iran was unlikely to topple the government. America's own intelligence, saying America's own war was unlikely to work. That is why the ceasefire message was sent, not from a position of strength, from a position of a plan that failed to produce its promised results. While the economic pain at home, gas prices up 43 cents in 1 week, heading toward $4 a gallon, began landing on the 90% of American voters who oppose this war before it started. Now, let's understand why Iran said no, because this is the part that most coverage gets completely wrong. The instinct is to frame Iran's ceasefire rejection as stubbornness or ideology, or the IRGC refusing to let politicians govern. But what Araghchi actually said on American television was something far more specific and far more strategically rational than simple refusal. He said, "We negotiated with the United States twice, and every single time they attacked us in the middle of those negotiations." This is not a complaint. This is a documented pattern with specific dates attached to it. February 25, 2026, Iran's own foreign minister publicly described a nuclear agreement as within reach. Active diplomatic negotiations were underway in Geneva. 3 days later, on February 28th, American and Israeli bombs fell on Tehran. That was the second time. There was the first time in June 2025, the 12-day war, where the same sequence occurred. So when America sends a ceasefire message, now Iran's leadership is not reading it as a genuine offer. They are reading it through the lens of having been attacked twice during previous genuine offers. The ceasefire message looks from Tehran exactly like the last 2 ceasefire messages looked. A pause request designed to give the attacking side time to reload, reposition, and come back for round 3. Araghchi said it plainly. "And now you want to ask for a ceasefire again? This doesn't work like this." Iran's condition for ending this war is therefore not a temporary ceasefire. It is a permanent end, structural, guaranteed, irreversible, the kind of settlement that removes the underlying conditions that produced 2 previous attacks during negotiations. Short of that, every ceasefire offer gets filed under trap, and the missiles keep flying. This creates a gap between the 2 sides that is not a negotiating gap. America's publicly stated position is unconditional surrender. Iran's publicly stated position is permanent end to all aggression. These are not 2 positions that a mediator closes over a weekend. Now here's the internal Iranian dimension that makes this even more complicated. Iran's President Pezeshkian stood up on Saturday and apologized to Gulf states for the Iranian strikes hitting their territory. He offered a gesture of de-escalation. Iran would stop attacking neighboring countries as long as those countries were not used to launch strikes against Iran. Within hours, Iran's military launched another wave of strikes on those same Gulf countries. The president of Iran made a peace gesture. His own military ignored it. This is not a malfunction. This is by design. Iran's lower-level military command centers were given autonomous operational authority specifically to prevent the scenario where a diplomatic signal gets mistaken for a ceasefire commitment, creating a window for the other side to strike. The IRGC's regional commanders are not waiting for permission from the president or the foreign minister before launching. They have standing orders to keep pressure sustained, regardless of what any civilian official says publicly. This means something critically important for anyone trying to understand how this war ends. Even if Iran's diplomatic wing wanted to accept a ceasefire tomorrow, the military infrastructure executing the strikes would not automatically stop. The chain of command for peace and the chain of command for war are not connected at the bottom. Iran's Revolutionary Guard confirmed publicly that Iran is prepared to sustain this level of conflict for up to 6 months. They have fired over 500 ballistic missiles and 2,000 drones in 10 days. And analysts note the rate has deliberately slowed, not because the stockpile is empty, but because Iran is rationing for a long campaign rather than exhausting itself in a short one. Meanwhile, Russia confirmed it is providing Iran with intelligence on American military positions. China's foreign minister warned the flames of war risk spreading, while quietly watching American military credibility erode in real time. Europe is staring at natural gas prices that have surged more than 20%, with Qatar's LG exports halted, taking 20% of global supply offline. Every party with influence over this conflict has a reason to let it continue just a little longer, except the Gulf states, whose infrastructure keeps getting struck, and the ordinary people on all sides paying the price. So where does this ceasefire story actually end? Let's be honest about what the word ceasefire means to each party in this conflict, because they are not using the same dictionary. To America, ceasefire means pause the fighting, stabilize oil prices before they destroy domestic politics. By time to reassess a strategy that has not produced its promised results, and eventually reach some kind of agreement that can be framed as a win before the midterm elections. To Iran, ceasefire means the last 2 times we heard that word, we got bombed. So ceasefire means nothing until it is attached to a permanent structural settlement that makes the third attack impossible. To the Gulf states, ceasefire means please stop now before our desalination plants, oil refineries, airports, and the 50-year economic miracle we built get reduced to a crisis management situation we cannot recover from in less than a decade. To the 7 American families burying their soldiers this week, ceasefire means stop sending our people into a war that America's own intelligence said was unlikely to succeed. To the families in Tehran, breathing air contaminated by burning oil depots, black rain falling on their city on Sunday morning, ceasefire means we didn't choose this and we cannot leave. The gap between all these definitions is the reason the ceasefire message sent by America was rejected by Iran in the most public way possible on American television to an American audience in English with complete clarity. Iran's foreign minister did not reject that ceasefire out of stubbornness. He rejected it because accepting a temporary ceasefire from Iran's documented experience is how you get bombed a 3rd time while your guard is down. The only acceptable deal is one that makes the 3rd time structurally impossible. America cannot offer that deal without it constituting a formal withdrawal of its military presence from the Gulf, the bases from which the attacks were launched. And America cannot offer that publicly without it being the largest strategic retreat in American military history since Vietnam. So the war continues. Oil at $109 and heading toward $150, according to energy analysts, if the Strait of Hormuz stays closed through March. 7 American coffins. 170 children in a school in southern Iran that Human Rights Watch is calling a war crime investigation. Black rain over Tehran. Qatar's LNG offline. Saudi Arabia's largest refinery closed. And America's own National Intelligence Council saying in a formal classified assessment that was reported publicly that this war was destined to fail. The ceasefire was rejected. The missiles are still flying. The oil is still rising. The people who sent the ceasefire message and the people who rejected it are both still standing at podiums on television, telling their populations that the other side will eventually give in. History has a word for wars where both sides believe the other side will give in first. It is not a short word, and it is not a cheap